Hi guys. A viewer was asking me recently to return to the distinction between holistic minds and atomistic minds. And I thought that this was an interesting thing to do, to even if it ends up being mostly a recap, we'll see if I'm able to inject new things into it. Because the more I proceed with my research into the INFJ type and into other types, the more I come to appreciate that if you don't really understand what it means to have a holistic mind or an atomistic mind, the less likely you are to really understand the differences between types and their manifestations in behavior and attitudes and relationship to the world that they each exhibit. So really, like, you will lose much of an opportunity for depth of interpretation and understanding if you don't master this concept of the difference between holism, mental holism that is, and mental atomism. So my hypothesis is more or less that the more NI a person, the more holistic their mind is, the more NE a person, the more atomistic their mind is. So you might say that NISE is the perceptual axis of holism, whereas NESI is the perceptual axis of atomism. So what does it mean concretely? It means that if you imagine that's your mind, you have to sort of think architecturally almost of your mind as a web of thoughts. And among those thoughts are many beliefs about the world, right? So it's quite useful to think in terms of the thoughts that contain beliefs for illustrative purposes. We are all defined by a whole constellation of things that we believe to be true of the world, as well as things we believe to be false. And so everybody has a web of particular beliefs and attitudes towards those beliefs that constitute their mental network. Now, holism is to be distinguished from atomism in the sense that a holistic web, so as defining the particular mental apparatus of a particular person, of a particular type, in this case more NI dominant or stronger NI auxiliary types, is a web that has to be closely integrated such that the parts, namely the various regions of different beliefs, if we decide to focus here on thoughts as beliefs, have to cohere and combine well with other parts in order to form a well-integrated whole, so that everything has to fit together. The atomistic kind of web is a web that functions more by aggregating lots of different things that don't have to necessarily cohere with each other. And so where it's possible to hold within the same framework beliefs that upon closer scrutiny would not be compatible with each other, okay? And in fact, the NE dominant types, if they have strong TI, for example, strong introverted judgment, and decide to zero in on the particular beliefs, they might very well come to realize that, oh yeah, so this is a belief that I have and it doesn't really seem to work, so maybe I'll just get rid of it, okay? And the thing is, sometimes they might say to you, oh yeah, I realize that these are not compatible, but I'm not going to get rid of it, I'll figure this out later, okay? And so to the person who has a strongly holistic mind, this is kind of maddening, and holistic minds can't really understand the way atomistic minds function, because the price of admittance to your web of beliefs in an atomistic mind is much higher. Also, one of the consequences of that is that once it's integrated, once it's considered like a valid new member of the web of beliefs, the belief is taken quite seriously. It has a strong valence, it has a strong intensity value. So it's a belief that is taken seriously, which is also why holistic people, holistic INFJs, holistic INTJs come across a little serious, because they have a relationship to their belief that is very steadfast, because they had to pay a price for that, okay? Atomistic minds often have a slightly looser relationship with their beliefs. The valence, or sort of value intensity, is there is an intensity of value, but it's not as intense. Usually always apart from the beliefs that are closest to the center, and that are much less likely to be, expelled from the web, even in the case of atomistic minds. But if you like, atomistic minds let thoughts come in and out with much more liberalism than holistic minds that have a higher price of admission, because if you like, either the belief or the particular thought that is considered for admission is already very finely tuned to be able to enter what's already dominating as a coherent whole, or the particular structure of the thought is different. There's enough evidence that it still has to be integrated, but it's going to take the strong NI user, a lot of energy, because in order to facilitate the admission and entry of this new thought, everything else that is already there will have to be updated to facilitate the admittance of the new belief or the new thought. That's because it's acting according to the demands of mental holism. Whereas in the case of atomistic minds, if there is like a kind of radically new thought that doesn't really look like anything the strong NE user already has, well, they can still let that in and figure out later, what coheres with what and so on. So if you like, the holistic mind tends to be more conservative in some ways. It tends to be slower to change, slower to evolve, but also tightly integrated and circular and very self-directed. Whereas the atomistic mind tends to be less conservative, quicker, a little bit more superficial, and a little bit less intense. Okay? Now, it so happens, according to my theory, that INFJs are very, very holistic. INTJs are also very holistic. And that can help you, once you've integrated the explanation as to what mental holism is for strong NI users and what mental atomism is for strong NE users, you can start to understand a lot of the differences in terms of behaviors and attitudes to the world as it's manifested. Why INFJs come across more formal and serious, why they are preoccupied with how the past connects with the future, why they're always concerned to see what is the link that is unbreakable from the distant past to the distant future through the present. Why are they always concerned to create these circular models, things that have already happened that are going to happen again? Why INFJs struggle to let go of the past? Why INFJs are not that flexible? Why INFJs find it difficult to let people in? Why is it painful for INFJs to have to get rid of people, and you notice things like what's called the door slam? This is really, really usefully to be understood in terms of holism, in terms of how costly it is to accept a new thought, a new belief, and therefore, if that turns out not to work out, the updates that's required taking so much energy as well. That's all about mental frameworks, mental architectures. Think about the INFJ, the strong NI users in general, as more holistic, and think of the strong NE users in general as much more atomistic, and the source of the incomprehension or sometimes mutual sort of talking past each other between strong NI users and NE users as often being not caused by any ill will or any lack of motivation to understand the other on the part of either the NI user or the NE user. Often it's just a lack of compatibility between mental frameworks. Let me know in the comments and give me a like if you enjoyed this video, guys. Help with the referencing, of course. If you want to know more about all these notions of holism and the NI world, my latest book, The Infinite Soul on the INFJ, called INFJ Life in the Modern World, is a good resource. How to be authentically INFJ in a world that is often hostile to INFJs, how to find meaning, purpose, and value. And I talk a lot about holism. I develop a lot about holism in this book, so you can find out more, if you check the link below. It's pretty cool. The Ecstatic Soul is of course still very much available. Check it out. A new look at the INFJ personality. It talks a lot about the mind of the INFJ, the consciousness of INFJ, what it's like to be an INFJ. So of course it talks about holism as well. The two books go very well together, as you can see. Choose yourself, get both, the link is below. And as usual, guys, you know, my Patreon page is the lifeblood of my channel. I very much depend on your kind donations. I don't get a lot of money from YouTube or anything like that. So if you would like to support me to help me continue to produce good content, please consider supporting me at my Patreon link below. You can access some bonus videos every 2 weeks where I go more in depth on the basis of topics from mainstream YouTube, all my books. You can interact with me anytime directly via the chat app there, interact with the community, suggest new videos, topics for new videos, and many other things. We have a growing community and we look forward to welcoming you there. Okay, guys, I talk to you soon. Bye-bye.